all come to pray. Going back for warriors, keeping the whispers away. In suits and in skirts, we're the rebels you say. Talking about life and dreaming of a different day. On the back row we stay, in the back we don't sway. Just let the sermon flow, we're on the back row.
It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall. If this goes well, we may do it again. If this is a train wreck, this may be never ever to be repeated. We have 6 of us that are all going to talk about The Heretic, or Heretic, I guess it is. Now, if you have not seen the movie and you are thinking, oh, I bet they're going to be able to navigate this spoiler-free, that is not what this is. This is full-on details. If you want to see it without any sort of, spoilers in your brain, shut this off and come back, because we are not going to be sensitive towards that at all. I mentioned 6 of us. People should know me. I'm host of the Cultural Hall. My name is Richie, and we also have with us Nikki. Nikki, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, everyone. I'm Nikki Lemon, born and raised in Vernal, Utah. I live in Salt Lake City now. Been a realtor for 20 years and have, for the last 6 or 7 years, been a keynote speaker, life coach, passionate about all things stories and people and how the stories affect the people. What else, Richie?
Connection to Mormonism?
Born and raised in a very conservative Mormon family. I was excommunicated in 2010, rebaptized in 2014, went hard in the paint back in Mormonism, and find myself now a non-believing, non-practicing, nuanced
person. Got it. Okay.
person.
Yeah. I was waiting to see where we were going with that.
Not sure.
We also welcome Marshall Moore. Why don't you introduce yourself, Marshall?
Hi, Richie. Thank you. Yes, I'm Marshall Moore, American Fork, Utah. I am 62 years old. I am a convert to the church, LDS Church, in 1974 at the age of 12. I've worked in the film industry my whole life, from the time I was 21 till now. I currently manage a film studio in Park City, and I'm the owner of the Zions Indie Film Fest, along with my wife, Michelle. And we are currently Sunday school teachers for the 14 and 15-year-olds in our ward.
And used to be the director of the Utah Film Commission, correct?
I was director of the Utah Film Commission for 7 years, and I worked there for 11 years.
Yeah, so a lot of the things that are happening in Utah, he will never take credit because he's far too humble for it, but are due to a lot of the work that Marshall has done. Blair?
Hey, Richie, good to be here. I am Blair Hodges, and I host a podcast called Family Proclamations. I worked for the church for almost a decade at Brigham Young University, where I created and produced the Maxwell Institute podcast. And I'm flying free now. I work in the nonprofit spaces for my day job, and my family does not attend church. I am a Mormon. I think it probably always will be. But I talk about, on my podcast, Family Proclamations, is an exploration of family relationships, gender, and sexuality. And it's not about the Church or Mormonism, although some of the episodes I interview church members. So that's a little bit about me.
And Blair, just so everyone knows, he said flying free in the nonprofit space. That's how much he gets paid. So go check out Fire. I'm just teasing. Berlin.
Yeah, like Blair, I'm flying free, but that's only because I'm unemployed at the moment, searching for that next great challenge and opportunity. Verlin Youd, I come from pioneer stock on both mom and dad's sides, so lifelong member of the church. Grew up just outside of San Francisco, spent my first 19 years primarily there. Post-mission, finished up at BYU and moved to the East Coast, never to move back, and currently live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, otherwise referred to as the Berkeley of North Carolina, where I currently serve as Elders Quorum president, but take great joy in taking a pretty nuanced approach to the gospel, and an approach where anyone can be comfortable saying, I don't know, at any time, and not feeling bad about it.
Nice. Hey, Jess.
Hey, everyone. I'm Jess Reynolds. I turn 38 this week.
Happy birthday this week.
Thank you very much. I'm excited. Oh. I live in Salt Lake City. Mostly, lived in Utah for most of my life. I've jumped around quite a bit, but ended up back here during COVID. I am a former Mormon, a former missionary. I was a gospel doctrine teacher for 4 years. I served in the Young Women's Presidency, Relief Society presidency, decided that the church no longer aligned with what I believe and how I see the world, but that's okay. My background is in high-end events, PR, and relationship management. I am a lifelong horror movie fan. So lifelong horror movie or horror and science fiction. So I was super excited about this movie to come out. And currently I'm working on producing a Utah/Mormon focused reality show. So should be pretty fun.
That's incredible. One that's been greenlit and going. Is that what you're working on?
It is like pretty much. Yeah. So we're working on fine tuning a couple of things, but Lifetime has given us a lot of really like promising emails. And
incredible.
Yeah. So
well, cool. So as everyone can hear, a varied group of people and all just being willing to come on, share their time and be able to share their opinions. I'm not going to go in any sort of order as far as all this goes, but I would love to know what you felt like maybe one thing was that like if there was one part of this film that you just felt like was nailed, what was the thing that you were just like, oh yeah, tell me the thing that they nailed for you, whoever wants to go.
I'll go, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'll read off my notes. I thought that they did a really excellent job at providing an equal opportunity of both supporting certain beliefs, but also kind of coming down on them as well. They did a great job at asking questions that they weren't providing answers to, but really holding a great space of introspection for people to like reflect. And also providing an opportunity to explore the question surrounding the anxiety of like, who knows?
Yeah. Okay. And anybody else? Who wants to go next? Yep.
I can go. So yeah, as a former missionary, I served in the Canada Calgary mission, 1986 to 88. And what I felt was like, there were days where I had those same exact days as those two sisters were having. It's kind of the last house on the street in the middle of nowhere. It's getting dark. The weather's turning bad. And you feel like you have to go to that door because there could be someone behind that door that wants to hear what you have to say. So I thought they nailed the mood, the atmosphere, the feeling of being isolated when you're just two missionaries out there by yourselves and somebody comes to the door. I felt that was real, and it brought back certain memories or feelings that I had as a missionary.
You know, I'll say for me, I'll interject here. The thing that I thought I was like, man, this is so great. The music, the song by the Hollies, the song by Radiohead, and the song by Lana Del Rey. I was like, that is so, because they each had a different mood. And the second they started playing, being someone that likes all of those songs, or the song, depending on how you kind of interpret it, I thought it was incredible.
Iterations.
Yeah, the iterations of it, to have that woven through and to have it set the mood as it did, I just was like, yes, so very right. And eerie right. And none of those songs are particularly scary or eerie or anything like that, but the way that they were able to bring it in just enough way, it didn't feel like I was being hit over the head with it, but just, okay, I know where this is going. I'm feeling it, and it was exemplified through the music. So that was the one thing for me that I was like, man, so great.
The thing I really appreciated was similar to what Marshall said. I loved the fact that they let these sisters talk about non-gospel topics, right? They're kicking off and they're talking about pornography and they're talking about some other things. And I always kind of felt bad. My companions and I on my mission, we talked about everything. We talked about politics. We talked about popular music. We talked about all kinds of crazy things that people would probably be abhorred that we talked about those. But I think that's very real. You get two people that age and they're going to talk about life and all the things that go with life.
Yeah, I want to jump on that,
Verlin,
where that conversation at first, I actually thought that was a weird way to open the movie. And I was sort of confused by it, but I did recognize the missionaries do have some interesting conversations. It wasn't until I went through the whole film and went back to that conversation where I think Sister Paxton, I think she's stumbling around with her language and being really hesitant, not because she's uncomfortable with sex or talking about that stuff, but because she's trying to say it in a safe Mormonish way to a companion that she's still probably trying to figure out. So I first saw her as the naive, simplistic sister, this like sweet little Mormon girl. But I think by the end of the film, we're supposed to see her as a much more nuanced character who the stumbling at the beginning of the movie was her trying to not sound too aware of stuff that was going on, but still wanting to talk about it. So that connects to the thing I was going to say is I love the performances by the sister missionaries.
Oh my
They were
gosh.
terrific.
Yeah,
They were
they were
outstanding. And then with Hugh Grant as the perfect villain. So I wanted to say to me that the thing that I thought every character nailed their role. Everybody was great.
Mhm.
Amen. Yeah.
All
I
right,
agree.
Nikki.
Richie, like you, I noticed the music that was huge for me. And I noticed the interplay between what it did was it created this really amazing tension between the music, the decor of the house, the scale of the furniture, the smallness of the windows in the home, even the coloring. And then for me, what it brought to the surface was this programming and conditioning that we as women are just laden with from the time we're little. This idea that it's our job to be sweet and kind and polite. And so you see that there's this tension building inside the home and those opening scenes when they're in Hugh Grant's house. And but the sister missionaries want to make sure they're not being offensive, right? But there's just this tension building, and you can almost like I can just read the thoughts inside their head because I've been in that situation so many times where you're trying so hard to be sweet and kind, but also like you're nervous and this doesn't feel right. And when is this okay for me to say that it doesn't feel right? When do I speak up? When do I get to be my own hero? And where is that line? But I love the tension and like the facial expressions, Hugh Grant, like genius, genius.
Yeah.
Just little twitches, a little twitch here and there.
Nikki, to that point, I really loved that as well. And even Blair, you kind of nailed this as well. Like I thought they like really crushed like the Mormon nice, like when you're trying, like as a missionary, I remember, having conversations with people and people wanting to like participate and like you kind of want to correct them and say like, yeah, I can definitely see why you feel that way. But and just kind of like redirecting. And so even when these girls are trying to leave through one of the two doors in the book room, well, this was really great. We hope, even like when they are like so in danger, like their lives are in danger, they still like, Sister Paxton has this fear of, being rude and offending a man and not fitting into this like nice sister, missionary mold.
That's it.
Yeah. The part that I thought they also nailed was just the overall feel of a psychological thriller. The from the very get-go, right? It was forcing you into a mindset of that psychological thriller. And I thought they did a great job of making you feel that and feel it through the music, through the script, through the set. I don't know about you all, but the whole time I was watching, I was feeling constricted by the set, right? It made me feel like I was trapped in a restricted set as well. And I'm guessing that was intentional.
Yeah. Did anyone else feel like it felt like like the set had been designed to resemble Dante's Inferno? Like, did you feel that going down the stairs? Like,
yeah.
It's a reverse temple, guys.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I've seen and read a little bit on Reddit that people will talk about how it's the experience like you used to have in some of the early temples where you would go from a room to a room and making that direct kind of comparison.
You mentioned the book room, and look, I mean, they're telling us right up front, this is a temple in reverse because you have the instruction room where they're all sitting there with, where he's got the two doors. Behind them is the veil, right? It's that red veil with that statue behind it. So there's a presence there all along, and it happens to be a woman, right? So there's this woman covered up by this veil behind them, whereas in front of them, they're presented with this choice. He's standing at an altar. Like, I think this was pretty deliberate, the way that they crafted this. And I think it was subtle enough to where a lot of Mormons aren't going to pick up on it when they're there. And I think it was respectful enough as well. They weren't trying to sensationalize a temple ceremony. I think they were just kind of using the structure to point, instead of an ascent to heaven, this is a descent to hell. And you saw there's the picture of Dante's Inferno he has on his wall, right? So they're really like trying to put that forefront. But I have to believe there was some deliberate like usage of some temple imagery. We've got doors, we've got like, they're handing keys to each other. They're, they're receiving instruction. There's a veil, all of the type of thing. There's fruit that's partaken of by the prophetess. She's eating the blueberry pie. There's your forbidden fruit. There's a lot of these
I want to ask Marshall about that, because you've had an opportunity to sit in on a lot of these, like, let's talk to the directors, or let's talk to the screenwriters and stuff like that. And I know that that is certainly a thing that occurs, where people go and they ascribe kind of all of these things to what the director or screenwriter has said, and the guy's like, what, in this film? Do you feel like that was an intentional kind of thing, like Blair was saying, or maybe just the way it got set up?
Well, no, I think it was very intentional. I thought they did a very good job researching and making sure they weren't making fun of anything, because it's so easy to fall into that trap. And like multiple times during the movie, I leaned over to Michelle and I elbowed her and I said, man, the sisters are really nailing this. They're like, I want to know if they had any connection to the church, or if they're just great actresses that did their homework on that. So no, I think it was very deliberate. Everything was calculated, and just kind of like the movie itself, it's all about the control and all that. I think it was definitely discussed heavily.
See, Richie, it connects to the speech, right? He gives the whole speech about religion being derivative. He talks about religion copying and copying and copying, and this is why he brings the music in, to show that it's all. And I think he's doing the same thing with Mormonism. But he thinks he's smarter than it. This is where he's right, is that religion is derivative. It's all borrowing. That doesn't mean it's false or all wrong. This is just how humans make meaning and pass meaning cross-culturally. He thought he had it all figured out, and that he's going to make the ultimate derivative religious exercise for these sisters, to for his own twisted purposes of converting them to the true religion, which is an awareness of patriarchal control.
It's worth noting just real quick that both of the sister missionaries do have ties to Mormonism, both raised but are no longer active. So for those that didn't and weren't aware of that, there is that aspect of it. I know we've got a lot that we're going to get to. I would love to know what was just a miss. What was the thing that you went,
Elder Kennedy.
Yes.
Amen.
By himself.
Yeah.
By himself.
Who was that guy?
He was by himself. Number two, he was cleaning the church. Since when does that happen?
Yeah, that was weird.
If they would have had to sign up for all the ward members, based on week of the month, then that would have been believable. But the elder mopping was kind of freaking
It's like
out.
an afterthought.
Him by himself, knocking on the door, and they poked a little bit of fun when he came back with the brochure too. It's kind of like, here's a goofy elder kind of doing this thing. But to me, he looked like he was 45 years old. I don't know about you guys.
That too.
Yeah, I took him to be like the bishop or stake president, or like mission president. That's how I interpreted that character to be like he was looking after the it's Topher Grace, right? That's that's the actor. Yes, that Topher Grace, who looks terrible. I left the movie and I sort of went, was that even necessary? I guess you needed to have the distraction so that part of the film could develop, and you needed that they were being cared for and that there was something sort of impending from the outside. But I really think that I could have had just as fine of a movie without that character.
Oh, for sure. It was very distracting.
It was.
That whole sequence pulled you out of what was actually happening in the house. I understand that people would be looking for them, but when he came alone, that really, even a mission president would at the least bring his wife or the assistants or zone leaders or somebody, would not go alone. So that pulled me out of the moment going, well, this isn't right.
I think most non-Mormon viewers aren't going to notice that. Non-Mormon viewers are going to put it in the vein of a Catholic priest or somebody who's and also, by the way, here's this Mormon authority who's a feckless wonder. So his whole speech about men controlling everything, and he seems like a total dope compared to the sisters. So it's also an interesting juxtaposition to have this kind of goofball in this religion that's also is straight up highly patriarchal as well. But they didn't go down that road of the sisters having this controlling man over them as missionaries, which I thought was a really interesting choice.
A quick
the piece that go ahead, Richie. Sorry.
Nope.
Yeah, I was going to say they got so many details right? They got dialogue right. They got relationships right. They got all this detailed stuff right. They talked about mission presidents, stake presidents, bishops, elders, and it's an elder that shows up that's completely wrong. And so I don't know how everything else was right, and they got that particular piece wrong.
Yeah.
Well, they had signed a contract with Topher Grace, and they couldn't figure out another way. That's almost what it kind of felt like to me. Like, do we need a name? A name that people maybe kind of remember, sort of? Like, it was such a separate piece. Aside from that maybe being the most glaring thing, I know that people have talked about like the it's not really pantsing because she's wearing a skirt, but the
Skirting.
the missionary. What did that? Anyone go, man, that's not real.
I mean, yeah, I don't think that generally people do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a little far-fetched, but I mean, at least, we got to, the code word magic underwear now has context. So
Sure.
I think part of what they were doing, they couldn't show everything that a sister or an elder goes through. So I think it was dramatic with the intent of showing embarrassing things happen. There are people that do mean things to sisters. There are uncomfortable parts of being a missionary. And I think they were kind of all trying to jam that all into that one scene, both using the term as well as pulling her skirt down.
None of you guys got pantsed on your mission? Am I the only one?
No, the difference with Blair is he just kept taking his pants off on his mission. Very uncomfortable.
I pantsed me.
Yeah, people in Scottsdale were pretty well behaved with the sisters. So I don't think I ever experienced that.
Go ahead.
It felt like a Regina, what's her name in Mean Girls? It felt like
Regina
a Mean Girl
George.
moment. Regina George. That's what it felt like to me. Yeah.
But I think the purpose of it in the film was to make us sympathetic toward her. This is a scene where you see her as a vulnerable victim, right?
Yes.
And it's setting her up to be the vulnerable victim, which it's going to pay off in the end when she's the one who survives. Yeah.
Well, I also think that it plays to a point where, they had been talking about sex and condoms. She's looking at these really pretty girls in a crosswalk, and then she actually has the most growth as a character. So it shows that she is open-minded to like where she is this very like true blue Mormon. She also has a lot of curiosity about these, kind of taboo things, and she has the most growth. So I think that also kind of plays into that arc.
Yeah, that's why I thought it felt like a Mean Girl moment, is because I remember growing up being told over and over again that there was something noble about being peculiar, to be the girl who was chaste and virtuous and not of the world, in the world but not of the world, made us more Christ-like, a more noble girl. And so to me, that's what it felt like. It felt like this girl who on one level kind of wants to be those cool girls and talk about these things, but she also wants to be a good girl, a good Mormon girl that is peculiar. And I think that's what I saw in that moment.
Anyone have another moment or anything about the film that they were like,
I think when they knocked on the door and asked him if he had a female roommate, I thought that was a little odd. I
think they knocked 3 times, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, and twice on the pipe if the answer was no. I got it. I get what you're saying. How was the approach for you, Jess, when you served a mission? Was it always... So being a dude missionary, and the gentleman could probably speak to this, we didn't have to worry about that as much. And I think that plays into why these are sister missionaries and not male missionaries, plus a lot of the other complexities of the film. But was it you had to be very clear asking, is there a gentleman home, all that kind of that thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we were ever invited in by, a man at the door, we would have to confirm that there was like a woman there. But oftentimes, if there wasn't, again, I served in like Great Wilds of Arizona where, it's never cold, and we could invite people out to talk to us. So if we couldn't go in, we could invite them out. And then if that was an option, we would come back with a sister from our ward. But yeah, it was very much a mission standard where we couldn't go into a home or be in a space without a woman present.
Jess, what was your phrasing? What would you ask if they had a wife or a woman in the home? I'm just curious about what your phrasing was.
We would often ask like, who else is home, who wants to join us? And then if they would tell us like, oh, it's just me, or I don't know, whatever, we'd say, oh, that's so wonderful, as a rule for our safety. And like we would just come out and say it, like, as a rule for our safety, we prefer to have a woman present while we're here.
Gotcha.
So we were pretty transparent about it.
That scene in the movie really built the tension too. When they posed that question, he knows that he's not going to be able to answer it truthfully, but he's trying to convince them that there is somebody there, and that was a whole storyline and feeling unto itself. The mystery is is there somebody there? You want to believe that there is. And, but you know, in your heart as a viewer, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
But that added a lot of tension.
Yeah, but I actually think, I mean, that's like one of the best themes of the whole movie, you know, going back to the question of like questioning like what you actually believe. I mean, even when they're in the book room and they're, you know, he's like, oh, my wife is behind one of these doors, you know, and they're confronted with that question of, do you still believe that his wife is there? You know, I don't know. I thought it was just like such a great point with the movie.
Any other things?
And it did turn out there were quite a few females in the building. Right.
Yeah, see, he could have said. He could have said.
Yeah, they were safe all along.
Which to me is one of the things that was maybe it wasn't a big miss, but it left a whole ton of unanswered questions about how did these other women get there? Why are they still there? It couldn't be other missionaries that he kidnapped, or else that pattern would have been seen. It couldn't have been, you know, that bothered me. And then when he cut the one's finger off, I couldn't figure out any rational reason why that was there, why that happened, what
she
that
told.
meant.
She told.
Oh, okay. She was the one who told.
Yeah, she's getting punished for spoiling she said it's not real.
Okay.
See, and I just thought it was because when he went to do that, I went, "Oh my gosh, please, no, please don't let." Oh my! Oh, he did it. He cut the. Oh, come on!
He punished her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no other things that you guys were like, meh. No.
I will say this: the first time as I'm watching it, there was something that was bothering me, which is the big speech that he gives where he's talking about religious syncretism, and to me, it was like straight off of Reddit or like the new atheism, and I was like, I kind of was like, wait,
Blair,
are the filmmakers?
Blair, use basic terms so that people know.
Okay, sure. So when he says stuff like, "Did you know that Jesus wasn't the only God to be born of a virgin," and that he starts making all these parallels with all these other ancient stories. It's
25
kind of thing,
different stories, right?
Yeah, it's the kind of thing you'd encounter in internet debates or like through Sam Harris or some of these new atheists who make these really simplistic claims about religious faith and about religious history that on the surface look very compelling. And you start thinking, oh my gosh, wow. And I thought the filmmakers were kind of like taking us through that as him sort of trying to deconvert the sister missionaries and prove them wrong. And I thought they were kind of maybe wanting us to go along with it. And I've seen some reviews where they're like, this movie wasn't great because we're supposed to believe these dumb ideas about religion that'll make us all into atheists or something. And I was like, no, by the end of the film, I came complete 180 and realized that like he was making a very facile argument that the sisters actually saw right through. Like they weren't taken in by this, which I could maybe make an argument that a 19 or 20-year-old sister missionary might not be ready for that conversation the way that these sisters clearly were. But I was glad it wasn't a miss. I thought they were doing a really cheap take on religion. And as it turned out, that's not what they were doing at all.
Yeah. I want to take a quick break, you guys. When we come back, we're going to talk about the statement that the church made about this film. A couple of different statements, actually. And also, I want to talk about kind of takeaways. Were you able to have this conversation with people? Are there people that you can't have this conversation with? Do you know people that will or won't see this? All of those things, we'll come back and do that in the second half of this episode. BestDJinUtah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the cultural hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. BestDJinUtah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. BestDJinUtah.com.
Imagine running a small business today. It's challenging. Imaging and internet presence is an absolute must. Even with that, you're still a small star in a bright cyber universe. Now, imagine you have someone who understands how to get your site designed for your talents and then easily searched by potential clients. Imagine Lennon Design. Whether it's strictly a website or a whole package of logo creation, advertising media, and promotional materials, Lennon Design is your partner in business. They'll test the boundaries of their imagination to create something unique for you. When you need creative, affordable design, let it be Lennon Design. Call 801-699-3022 or visit lennondesign.com.
Here in the second half of this episode, remember, you can always get in touch with us. If you've liked this episode, the format, the way that we've had so many people, you can send us an email, contact@theculturalhall.com. If you like it, you can say, oh, more of this, please. And if you hate it, keep it to yourself. Don't send that email. I get enough. There's enough bad in the world. Just keep that crap to yourself. Contact@theculturalhall.com. I want to start here. Someone pointed out to me that, there was a couple of statements from the church that essentially, though they didn't say Heretic, the A24 production, please don't go and see this, but that in collaboration with the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, where they have said, hey, the depiction of our faith on the screen isn't who we are. We encourage people to get to know who we are. Additionally, in another statement, the church has said, hey, we want to make sure that our missionaries, specifically our sister missionaries, are safe. But a friend pointed out to me that no one else has really sort of clued in on a quote from the church that says the following. It says, it portrays the graphically violent treatment of women, including people of faith, and those who provide volunteer service to their communities. Any narrative that promotes violence against women because of their faith or undermines the contributions of volunteers runs counter to the safety and well-being of our communities. I haven't heard anyone sort of reemphasize that statement, and I think that that is a lot of progress, very statedly progress from the church about something like this, with no argument done. Okay, great. I'm glad that.
That's a whole other topic. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Jess?
I have a lot of opinions about that.
Please.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty extreme statement to make when there are so many marginalized groups that are on the receiving end of violence. I don't think it's just community activists or women, especially there are so many things going on internationally in the state of Utah. What an odd thing to say.
Do we throw it out though because they didn't include everyone else, or do we go, it's a little bit of a win, maybe we could include everyone next time?
I think it's a little opportunistic. I mean, it's fine. Thanks, church, but I think I find it odd.
Okay.
It seemed to me it was a little odd because it is a psychological thriller. It is rated R. It is billed as a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually surprised there wasn't more language in it than there was, and it was some gore, which is part of horror, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was way less, in fact, than I expected in some ways.
I would
And
say,
so it seemed to me that it was showing horror with horror, and I'm not sure the comment about violence kind of made sense given that situation. I mean, you could say that about whatever horror movie you want to pick on.
Yeah.
Blair?
From a communications perspective, I think it was incredibly thin-skinned and unnecessary. The film hadn't come out yet. The people who made the statement hadn't seen the film. The sister missionaries are clearly the protagonists. This isn't encouraging any sort of violence against missionaries. And further, the church has put forth narratives of missionaries being in danger. The Saratov approach is a movie about missionaries in Russia being kidnapped. By the way, totally made the missionaries look a lot better than they actually were in the real life story of what happened there. But it was to serve the church's narrative and its purpose. So instead of putting a statement out disagreeing with it, it sells the movie at Deseret Books. So I think it was an unnecessary, thin-skinned, sort of silly statement. It was entirely unnecessary. It's kind of embarrassing. Kids would say cringe.
I am aware that somebody was sent from the church to go to the Toronto International Film Festival to have a look at it. And then
that makes it even worse.
Report back. Yeah, I'm aware of a situation that did happen.
Well, I
Yeah.
revised my statement exonerating them for not having seen it. And if they did have someone that's seen it, then the statement's even worse because, like I said,
I
it does
don't
not
think it
promote
was an
violence
official.
against missionaries.
I don't
And
think it was an employee of the church, but someone aligned with the
okay,
church
Someone's non-member neighbor.
yeah,
and they said, "Hey, would you go see this for us and see,
it was a lone
what it's
elder
all
who's like
about?" And then,
45 years old.
Yeah.
Nobody knows who he is.
Yeah.
oh, you're aware. Yeah.
And worth sort of clarifying, the Saratov approach, not an LDS produced film, but certainly
No.
sold at Deseret Book and
Yeah, and they had
Movies
commercials
and
on
those
during
things.
General
Sure.
Conference. Here's what I can guarantee you: you won't see commercials for stuff during General Conference that the church isn't pretty much okay with. So
Sure.
again, they could have put a statement out then and said, this film is putting missionaries in danger to show missionaries being kidnapped and held for ransom and whatnot. I actually think that's probably uh something that might happen more often than, I don't know, crazy man in his house with giant booby traps set up everywhere. But
Marshall, you work a
Yeah.
lot in the film space, and I'd be curious because for me, when I go to a movie, I can only think of maybe an experience where like the suspension of disbelief, like I know I'm going to a movie. Are statements like this even sort of necessary? Are brands, are organizations
think it's-
only doing the film a favor and drawing more publicity to it by saying something? Or do you think that there is actually some sort of risk or some sort of responsibility for the churches and organization to say, hey, we don't like this?
Well, I think it's all about perception of the church at that point. It's like people are from all walks of life and faiths are going to go see this, and they've chosen two sister missionaries to be the focal point of the story. It could have been anyone else, but their sister missionaries inherently are interesting. They're out there on their own dime, just doing what. So I think that the church, in and of itself, is concerned about perception. And I think anytime sisters are portrayed, or elders, or sacrament meeting, whatever it might be, there is a concern there that the message is accurate, that it's right, that it's telling the story as close to possible. But at the end, it's entertainment. That's right, and that's why we went and saw it. It's like I wasn't expecting it to be a doctrinal movie. I expected to be entertained. And it's in my genre. Michelle didn't want to go. She said, "Hey, you didn't tell me this was a horror movie." I said, "But it's got sister missionaries in it. Is that okay?" And she ended up liking it. So yeah, I think that's what it is. But on the other question that you asked, and I'll just take one more second about other people going to see it. I have a brother-in-law who was just here 30 minutes before we started this, and I was telling him about this podcast, and he has a daughter on a mission right now in Alaska. And I said, he went and saw Wicked tonight. And I said, well, we're going to talk about Heretic tonight. He cringed. He's like, whoa, no. But his position is different because he has a missionary out in the field right now, and he was a missionary himself too. But yeah, he didn't want any part of even bringing that into his life, into his world. And then he found out that his daughter actually saw the trailer.
Well, and funnily enough, so I was recently up in Washington, and I ran into two sister missionaries, the same two sister missionaries in two different times, and multiple people. They said it has been the greatest approach / tracting thing where people are coming and talking to them and saying, hey, we've seen or we saw the trailer. Please be careful. Make sure that you are safe.
Yeah.
If you ever find yourself in any sort of danger, please reach out. Know that we are safe people that you could come and be able to visit. And they haven't even seen the trailer. They they ended up having to ask someone, what is this that we're even talking about? And so I think that's sort of an interesting, not intentional, side effect from this whole thing.
Reverse effect.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want everyone to take me to the moment the movie gets done, right? Roll credit, fade in, the name of the film there at the end. What are you thinking? Or if you're there with someone, what do you say to the person next to you? Like what was the thing that went through your head, or that you said out loud? What was that moment like?
My moment was what I said earlier. This was the perfect suspense thriller. I think it was set up. It obviously wasn't a huge budget film. Maybe Hugh Grant had a budget, but everything else, The set was restricted, but it accomplished the goal it was out for. If it was looking for a suspense thriller, there was one thing that rested in my mind that made me think differently about Hugh Grant's character, and that was, we referenced earlier how the sister was skirted. Someone pulled her skirt down and exposed her magic underwear, and you noted that later in the film, the bad guy is the only other person that mentions magic underwear. And to me, that was almost a foreshadowing, saying this juvenile trick on the sister, he's using the same terminology. And so maybe he isn't as mature. Maybe he isn't as clever. Maybe he isn't as smart, and is in fact playing just a terrible trick on these sisters.
Anyone else? I'd love to know, because I know there's got to be different feelings. Anyone were like, yeah, see, well, I'm right. Ha
Like I said earlier, I have been a horror fan my entire life. I have a best friend who we go and see horror movies with every time one comes out. There have been so many disappointing ones recently. And, of course, this one hits close to home. So we've been particularly looking forward to seeing this one. It ended, and we both just sat there and thought it was so perfectly done, so well crafted. It was such an exciting think piece. It was so exciting to talk about. I really think it was just masterfully done.
Can I ask if you both agreed on what actually happened in that final scene? Because there's a lot of different interpretations about what actually happens here. And I'm wondering if you saw it with someone who was on the same page as you.
With the butterfly?
Because me and my wife had kind of different takes on it. And I think
with my wife and I.
Yeah, and I think
my wife's not a member of the church, and we came away with very different kind of approaches to this.
And I think the film did this on purpose. So I'm interested in what you took away, Jess.
Yeah, absolutely. So, earlier in the movie, she talks about when she dies, she wants to come back as a butterfly and land intentionally on somebody's hand, so that
which is a heretical thing to say, by the way.
Oh, I know. We don't believe in reincarnation.
Yes, exactly.
I know, but we do believe in signs and symbols. So, I don't know. Anyway, in that moment, I thought it was really great. I thought it actually kind of referenced the conversation they were having about porn earlier in the movie, how the female porn actress was ashamed in that moment from that experience. And in that moment, that was a confirmation to Sister Paxton that God was real. And so in that moment, after, her near-death experience, she goes and she sees a butterfly on her hand. It was like confirming to her that God was real, but then on the outside of it, that did not exist in reality. So to her, it confirmed her faith, when in reality, it wasn't there. But I guess to someone who believes, it doesn't really matter what any one person believes. And so for me, I think that's like the whole question is, is there one religion? Are all religions correct? Does it matter at all? And so I think that really, like that, again, going back to that question of like, who actually knows? I think like that was such a nice theme throughout. And it kind of gives you that opportunity for her. Like, was she delirious? Was it real? Was it God's sign to her that he is real and thinking of her and no one else needed to see it? I just thought it was a nice tie-in.
Now, Blair, he asked Nikki as well. Nikki, what'd you think of that ending?
Yeah, like for me, I felt it really closely to what it feels like to go through a faith crisis. For me, she was the heroine. She started out very naive, and you see her transform into this heroine who is facing all of these things. And at the end, in her conversation with Hugh Grant about prayer, she stands in this. She says to him, does it matter? Does it matter if we have evidence that the prayer works? Does it matter that the butterfly is really there or not? It tied together for me. This need that we have to know that there is a God, that there is evidence, or can we simply choose to just be good people, to believe in something bigger than ourselves, and to pray for other people, and to move forward with more knowledge, more light, more understanding, less naivete, but still go forward and have some sort of belief in something bigger than us without evidence of it. We don't need the evidence. And then we just get to show up and be good people and continue to pray, whether we know the prayer works or not. Believe the butterfly is there, whether it's there or not.
What was it like for you and your wife, Blair? I'd be curious to know about that situation.
Yeah, so my first read on it was, I guess my first read on it was just straightforwardly that she had this wonderful experience where Sister Barnes came and visited her. But I also wondered, like, or she had talked about near death, or Sister Barnes had talked about near death experiences and seeing a light, and like that this doesn't prove anything about the afterlife. And so another interpretation was like, did she actually die? Did she not make it out? Is this kind of her mind's last sort of thinking through of something and finding a beautiful thing at the end as the lights are about to go completely out? And I think my wife was kind of more in that, on that side of things, about which kind of lines up with her ideas about the afterlife, and whereas mine are more like, I really don't know, and so I don't have I'm not sure, and so mine was, my take on it was just a lot more ambiguous of like, yeah, but I think anyone can marshal a case. Like the case Jess made about Sister Paxton going through a faith crisis during this, I read it totally differently. I read it as like, actually Sister Paxton was there all along. She said really heretical stuff from the jump. She talked about coming back as a butterfly. She's the one who just wanted to get the hell out of there and go through the disbelief door. She didn't care. Not because she didn't believe, but because she's just like, let's just do what it takes to get out of here. Very practical, pragmatic approach. And then she had that whole speech about whether prayer worked or not, and said that she didn't even think that it does. But yet she still believed in prayer in a different way. She rejected the dichotomy of belief and disbelief. Her religion was like hands-on stuff. It's handing her coat to the woman in the cage. It's paying enough attention to the woman after she ate the pie to notice that her body's positioned differently when they went back in the room. It's letting him crawl toward her and put his head on her chest as after he, after he killed Sister Barnes, and like letting him have this moment with her. She was constantly giving. And so to me, she's the heretic. She's the weird, she's the wild card all along, the one that we didn't expect to be. But also one other heretic was that prophetess who whispered the truth secretly and said, no, this is this isn't real. What you're seeing is not real. That was a heretical move on her part, rejecting the control of the patriarch that was orchestrating the whole thing. I think they all kind of had their own heretic kind of vibe to them, depending on how you read it. But yeah.
Marshall, what about you? Oh, sorry, Verlin.
Yeah, I was going to say, to go along with that, I really loved her speech about prayer to him, because what she was doing is using his intellectual only approach and kind of battering him with his own intellectual tool, right? Where he had used this intellectual approach about these 25 religions and all the commonalities and all the derivatives. And then he asks her for prayer. She's like, why are you asking me for prayer? This is the scientific study that's been done. It doesn't work. There's no proof. There's nothing. I felt like she was just kind of sticking it back to him intellectually. And I love the fact that she kind of used that kind of tool set with him.
Marshall, what about the very end for you?
Well, I sort of, since everybody kind of covered all that, I wanted to look at more as like the way I felt about the filmmaking.
Okay.
At the end of the film, where I felt it was a case where screenplay, direction, production design, all came together. But what really stunned me was Hugh Grant's performance.
Yeah.
I thought I couldn't take my eyes off him during the whole movie, and the sisters as well. I thought there was only really 3 cast members. I mean, yeah, there was some supporting things here and there.
Hey,
There was Topher Grace.
Well, no, I was saying there's some supporting stuff, but they had to carry that whole film. And when I got through watching it, I'm like, I just realized those 3 carried the entire movie.
Yeah.
And it was because of the tight dialogue, and what they brought to it in terms of their talents.
Yeah.
But I will say there was a part in the movie where I was like, oh no, it's going to fall into a cliche. It's going to fall into the old horror movie cliche when he went back through the rooms and the girls were in the cages, and it's like, it was interesting, yes, but I thought, oh no, I just lost a little bit of that sense of wonder that I was having during the movie when it got there. I mean, it made sense, but I didn't. That's where it drifted a little away for me. So maybe what I say was 100%, maybe it was 80% of the movie I loved, and 20% I'm not so sure about. And then also I had a question for you guys about the carving, the miniatures that he was carving. Of course, a tribute to Hereditary in there somewhere, but I lost something there. Can you guys help me understand what was going on with the miniatures?
They're his Monopoly pieces. He's playing a game. He talked about loving that, and now he's doing it himself.
I also think that it's kind of like it's symbolic of where he thinks that he's outsmarted religion and philosophy, and now he's playing God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's
I read it
he's
as-
moving the pieces and making the world.
Yeah.
molding belief is what I felt. It felt like molding belief, shaping belief.
Because
I also caught a little
yeah.
bit of a vibe about stereotypical mysticism, right? So I served my mission in Haiti. Voodoo's a thing in Haiti. People totally misunderstand what voodoo is, and I almost wondered if he was using that, and was he moving the pieces after something happened to them, or was he moving the pieces before something happened to them? And I could never figure that out.
Yeah, I thought it might take a supernatural swerve that way, and I don't think that ended up being
Yeah.
the case.
So we get to the end of the movie and the butterfly appears on her hand, and I lean over to my wife and I go, "See, Mormonism, boom, done. That was it." and then the film title, fades in, and she goes, "I hate you so much." And then we were able to have a really great conversation about it, but I couldn't help. I thought it was so beautiful. It was so odd. My wife raised in the South, not really even knowledgeable about the LDS Church till moving to Park City as a senior in high school, and then sort of being surrounded in it, but never, been a member or anything like that. The such vastly different take that she had than I had. Do you think that people that don't know anything about Mormonism would like this film at all?
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Hands down?
So.
You think so? Because it's so
I think
wordy
so.
and it's so it felt so Easter eggy and we're talking shop within the church. I think that the performances, yes. Hugh Grant, I think he can charm his villainous way into everyone's heart. So I'm not discrediting that, but I think that there are a lot of people that will come away from it and go, "What was that?"
I think that a lot of people will like it because indoctrination is indoctrination. Whether that's religious or whether it's societal, I think that it just poses a lot of good questions about why we believe what we do.
If I was an atheist, I might be sort of ticked off because I'd be like, "Oh, great, some atheist representation in a movie, and he's a psychopath who has all these stupid, new atheism beliefs, and that's all crap." But so maybe some atheists could have some beef with the film, but I think the film really did try to cut through that. It didn't represent Hugh Grant as all unbelievers. I think it represented Hugh Grant as I've seen the dynamic happen in ex-Mormon and post-Mormon communities where they can replicate the same kind of patriarchal abuses that you've seen in any terrible experience someone's had with the church, and the kind of manipulation that Hugh Grant did as an unbeliever, to me, signals that it's the manipulation that's the problem, not the presence of belief or the absence of belief, but what people are doing with it. And I think, Richie, this film works because you don't have to know squat about Mormonism to pick up on the symbols and to pick up on the emotions and to pick up on the manipulation. And the film works because it works the way religion works, which is it gives you just enough to play with and think with. And there's so many different possible interpretations, and the filmmakers did not ram the message down our throats. Right. And that's the best kind of religion. That's the religion you can think with and play with. And it's not derivative, it's imaginative, it's creative.
Good point.
Marshall, is there any chance Hugh Grant will win an Oscar for it?
He should get nominated, but a lot of times these films don't win major awards like that. But like Toni Collette in Hereditary, right? Great performance. She did not get a nomination. I think she got a Screen Actors Guild nomination. But I think because he's Hugh Grant and because it's so different from what he's done before, I think there's a pretty good chance that we'll see his name around awards time.
A question for you all. What was the attendance like in the theater when you saw it? I saw it actually this afternoon on a Monday afternoon at 1:50 p.m. screening.
Wow.
Right? And there were 4 of us in the theater. But that's not surprising. When did you all see it, and what was the theater attendance like?
I saw it on a Saturday, the weekend it opened, and my theater was packed, and my husband and I were making observations of everyone trying to guess who were the Mormons, who were the non-Mormons, and it felt Mormon heavy to me. Yeah.
We went on Halloween, and it was mostly full. Yeah, there were some empty seats up front. We actually had to sit up front. So the whole back section was full. So we were in the the third row in the front section at a megaplex. Yeah.
Okay. Jess?
I went around noon on a Sunday, the opening weekend. So, not church going people. There with a canned cocktail, and it was pretty packed. So we all had a good time.
When I walked into the theater, there were 4 of us in total, and one guy was in my seat, and they were reserved seats. He had a
Rude.
very warm backside, and I was very, very mad.
Oh.
That seat was so warm. I was super upset about that experience.
Oh, that's funny.
So, is it for everyone?
No.
I'm not
No.
taking my mom. No.
No.
Yeah, my mom, I wouldn't take my mom. My
Well,
sister won't go because she has a missionary out right now
Yeah,
and
I
had
feel
no desire of seeing
yeah,
it.
I feel like if you have someone serving,
Yeah.
it's a different sort of hell that you would be introducing them to. Knowing
Mhm.
that it likely would never happen, but it just too many things of like, nah.
Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
sympathetic to that for sure.
Well, like for me, when I saw the trailer, I'm like, this movie's for me.
Yeah.
I'm going. But my wife is like, no, I'm staying away from that movie. So yeah, it's not for everyone.
But wait, is anybody else here? I was not a horror person at all
Oh, I
until
don't care
maybe
for them.
like
I don't
6
care for
years
them.
ago.
I'm not.
And I watched the Haunting of Hill House series on Netflix,
Oh, yeah.
and I thought like,
Okay.
oh, there's a
Really
lot,
good.
and like Get Out by Jordan Peele, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. And then I started reading about horror and kind of what it does culturally, and I was like, there's a lot more here. So I think my Mormon upbringing was really what prevented me. Most of them are rated R, they're violent, and so
Yeah.
I just thought it was garbage. I didn't know that you could do amazing social commentary and think pieces in horror, and you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's so incredible about horror. Sorry, I don't mean to like take a tangent here, but I mean, rom-coms and romance movies, like I can't say everybody. I hate to say words like that, but it's so easy to identify with feelings of love. Or if a family member dies in a movie, it's so easy to identify with like how sad that would be. But when it comes to horror, no one thing scares the same person. Like different things scares different people. And so it really opens the door for creativity. And when horror is well done, it really just nails it. So you mentioned Get Out. I think probably the best horror movie done, recently is Talk to Me, since this movie. And I think it's just like when you can combine those, suspenseful, scary components and make it a well done film, that's what really drives a well done horror movie. Like that's what makes the difference.
You said it really opens the door. Does it open the door on the right or the left? Which door?
You have to choose, my friend.
Good.
Or just escape.
No, just go, run. Before we let everyone go, because we have reached our time, everyone, I want to say personally, thank you so much. It's cool to have such a diverse group of people here willing to take some time, be able to share your perspectives and all that. Each of us have things that we would love to tell people about. I would love it if you would take the briefest moment and tell people where they might be able to find or follow or whatever you would have someone do that would do that. And we'll start with Nikki.
Hi. Well, I would love if anyone knows someone who needs a great keynote speaker. I love to speak on becoming your own hero. I'm also a life coach. If anyone needs a great relationship life coach, you can find me at nikkilemon.com or email me at nikkithelifecoach@gmail.com. Yeah, so there's
Perfect.
me.
Marshall?
Yeah, sure. So I'd like to invite all of you and anyone listening, watching, to come to the Zions Indie Film Fest. It's February 24th through March 1st. And, there may be some of these kind of movies in there, but not, all the way, if you know what I mean. It's like, so we do have an After Dark section, but it's still in the PG-13 variety. So we'd love to see you at the Zions Indie Film Fest. We're screening the films now, and we'll make an announcement on all the accepted films in a couple of weeks.
Awesome.
Exciting.
Blair?
Check me out at familyproclamations.org. I'm going to actually change the name of the podcast next year because I feel like Mormons think I'm like either making fun of the family proclamation or attacking it. And I'm kind of appreciating and attacking it.
Okay. What are you going to change it to? That's the question.
It will be called Relationscapes. And so it's all about the intersections of human relationships, gender, and sexuality. But right now, Family Proclamations, there's episodes on like female reproductive health and transgender folks and what it's like to be a man today, what's up with masculinity. We're exploring all kinds of things. I interview authors of the best-selling books on all those topics, national bestsellers, renowned scholars and specialists. So you can learn about all kinds of different ways to be a family.
Super light. If you just want to laugh for a good hour, check out Blair. I'm just teasing.
No, if you liked me here, you'll like me there. Please,
Yes.
people. Please.
Yes. If you liked him here, you will like him there. For sure. Verlin?
If you want to experience BYU and University of North Carolina fandom, follow me on Twitter, reach out on Twitter. It's just V Youd. There aren't any other Verlin Youds in the known universe. And then the other thing that I am passionate about, I mentioned at the outset, is let people live in the gray, let people have questions, let people don't know all the answers. And it gives you far more credibility and far more understanding if you're comfortable not knowing all the answers too.
Yeah. Well said, Jess.
Cool. Well, first of all, I'm just happy to be here. And if you have any event planning needs, please come visit my website. It's vibranteventsutah.com. I handle anything from private personal events to really large scale corporate events. So anything, I just did a bar mitzvah up in Park City. I've done, 600 person, multiple day events as well. So I'd love to, talk to and work with you.
Hey, I should also mention then, Jess, that I had the VP of operations at Utah Film Studios in Park City, and we do a lot of large scale events there. So come take a tour.
I'd love to.
Okay.
She was laughing like, I don't know how this connection is going to work. And see, we already connected two people.
But I'm the one.
Yep.
And she always hires Richie to be the DJ, right?
Not yet, but she will. She has made repentance for that. You guys,
I have. Next time.
And then for us, if you like this episode, wherever you're listening, if they allow you to review it, take a moment and say, this is what I like. Or you know what? You can leave hateful things there in a review. That's fine. If you want, if that's the kind of person you are, you want to spill hate in the world, go ahead and leave that hate-filled review.
Hey, Richie, can I add one thing to that? Because
Yes?
you probably always ask people to do this.
Sure.
I've never had the chance to do this. Listen, listeners, listen to me. I am not affiliated with the Cultural Hall. This is not my podcast. But if you like this show, I guarantee you've heard Richie ask you so many times to review it, and most of you haven't done it. Please, it takes 2 minutes. I'm begging you. Creators deserve to hear from the people that enjoy what they produce. Please take a second and review the show if you care about the show. It makes such a difference for creators. That's my pitch for you, Richie.
Thank you very much. Well, we hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body, that if you're not healthy enough to listen this week, that you'll be healthy enough to listen next week, and that when the time comes, you will be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Rick McGee, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger with a U will be saving a seat for you on the back row of the Cultural Hall.
The Cultural Hall.
Nice try, Verlin. You missed it.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row.